Well, as I was in production of the previous videos on Daniel chapter 7, I've been listening. You see it in the comments. I always listen to the former Adventist podcast, and they just did a whole series on Daniel, and I thought it was very good. One aspect of Daniel that I heard them talk about was the little horn of Daniel 7, little horn of Daniel 8, and in Adventism they teach us the same power, the same horn, and I thought, I didn't come across that yet, and I thought, really? They teach that? And I thought, that's almost beyond the realm of belief. Why? Because all you got to do is just simply read the Bible and compare about the little horns, which we're going to do here. And I thought, no, this just can't be. This is just too bad. I mean, it's talk about not reading the Bible, Adventists, just to compare. It's like, oh, no, that can't be. Well, I did some research. And I thought, I got to see, one, if it's true. Of course, I trust them, but I got to check myself if I'm going to make a video. And two, is it still a current teaching? And you know what? It is. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. So anyway, Adventist, if there's ever a time to read the Bible, I mean, I probably have said this 400 times in the last, I don't know how many videos. It's now. Now, pick up your Bible, open up to Daniel 7, and open up to Daniel 8, and follow along in this video. We're going to do in this video what Adventists don't do. That is, examine the teachings. So we're going to, first of all, prove the Adventist point that the little horn of Daniel 7 is the little horn of Daniel 8 as exhibited in Adventist teachings. And we're going to start right here with this Advent Review, Herald Magazine, January 19th, 1860, before the church was even formed. And what did they say on page 69? The little horn of Daniel 8 is evidently a symbol of the Roman government. And then it jumps down. A reference to chapter 7:25, that's Daniel, will explain. The little horn of this chapter is a symbol of the same Roman government in its papal form. Fast forward 150 years, and here we have the false teacher, the pseudo-theologian Ted Wilson, on the cover of Adventist Today, spring of 2011, where they say on page 17, the little horn power of Daniel 7 is the same as he who magnified himself even as a ruler, host in Daniel 8, verse 11. They did it again. Let's look at the SDA Brain Trust. There it is. There's the pictures of the Brain Trust, the Biblical Research Institute. Not much biblical research going on here, I can tell you that, and I will show you in their magazine. Look at their history, and the very first underline, it said they're Adventist theologians. I agree, they are Adventist theologians. They are not Christian or biblical theologians. Good point, Adventists. I agree with you. Their mission exists to encourage commitment to the truth of Scripture. No, they don't. Sorry, this SDA Brain Trust simply can't read the Scriptures. How do I know? Let's look at their October 23 Reflections magazine, which I subscribe to also, by the way. Thank you very much, Reflections. And what did they say in October of 2013 on page 8? The very same apostate power that would establish the abomination that causes desolation in replacement to the daily, the sacrifice, is described in Daniel 7 and 8 as the little horn. Speaking of the Brain Trust, oh, here's the Brain Trust, the Advent Defense League and Super Brain Trust member, Ivor Myers, who simply can't read his Bible either. You're going to watch a 30-second clip from this guy. So I feel like I need some bird seed here. Let me just feed the bird Ivor Myers, because all he's going to do is simply repeat what you've just saw for the past 160 years in Advent. You know, that's all Adventists do. They're birds. They just repeat what has been in their magazines forever. They don't ever check it out. So we're going to see how this pseudo-intellectual, pseudo-teacher Ivor Myers is going to teach about Daniel 7 and 8. Let's watch that 30-second clip.
All right. So here's what this tells us, guys. Very simple. Very simple. The little horn of Daniel 8 must be the same power as the little horn of Daniel 7. Does that make sense? God is using the exact symbol so that we are not confused. The little horn of Daniel 8 it is God zooming in even more on what he just showed us in Daniel 7.
All right. You just saw him do exactly what I said he was going to do. Let's just feed him some birdseed. He's going to repeat what we just saw in the Advent Review and Herald Magazine from 1860. Not a single Adventist has bothered to pick up their Bible and look at Daniel 7 and look at Daniel 8, look at the little horn and say, what do I know about the little horn of Daniel 7? When did it come into existence? How did it come into existence? What did it do? When did it die? And you do the same thing for Daniel 8. Who is this little horn? Where does it come from? What region of the world? Region of the countries? What does it do? When does it die? And look at the differences and go, oh, are they identical? Is it the same? Or is it different? It's different. What I'm going to do now is we're going to jump to the computer screen. We're going to actually read Daniel 7, and we're going to read Daniel 8. We're going to note all the key aspects of the little horn in Daniel 7, note all the key aspects of the little horn of Daniel 8, and then we're going to compare them. That's what I want every Adventist to do. Just do the same thing. And do that, and you'll see they're different. You are being taught wrong, Seventh-day Adventists. And I'll have more to say that at the end, but let's look at Daniel 7 and 8 now. All right, so here we go with Daniel 7 and the aspects of the little horn I want you to look at. Let's start with verse 8. And Daniel said, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another horn, a little one, before which 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. We'll see this again here in a minute. Let's look at the rest of Daniel 7, starting with verse 20. And about the 10 horns that were on its head, the other horn, right, the little one that came up, and before which 3, which we just read in verse 8, were plucked up. The little horn had eyes and a mouth and spoke great things. That's humanity. And it spoke great things, blasphemous things, that seemed greater than its companions, the other horns. And then it says, and this horn made war against their saints and actually prevailed against them until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was given by God. And this little horn, it says, this fourth beast is going to devour the whole earth. And then it says, as for the 10 horns, out of this kingdom, it's 10 kings, right? Now, horns are kings, and there shall arise after them one that's going to be different. And he's going to, I saw this in verse 8, right? And this little one is going to arise out of the 10, and it's going to put down 3 of them, which we saw. And again, this is going to, you've seen this already, this little horn is going to speak great things, blasphemous things against the Most High, is going to wear out the saints. You've already seen the previous videos. This is the nation of Israel. This is not given to you Gentiles. This is to the Jew of the Most High. And he's going to think. It doesn't say he will. He's going to think to change times and law. And he's going to do this 4 times and a half time. But as he's doing this, God is going to sit in judgment, and his dominion is going to be taken away, and this fourth beast, this little horn, is going to be destroyed. See, all these events here happen in sequence. We come to the judgment of this beast, and then when that's done, the kingdom and the dominion, etc., are going to be given to Christ. So what do we know about this Daniel 7 little horn? Comes out of 10 horns, which we know is the 4th kingdom of the statue, which is Rome. This little horn is going to pluck out 3 of the 10. It has the eyes, in other words, it's going to be a man that's going to speak great things. It's going to devour the whole earth. It's going to war against the saints. It's going to war against the nation of Israel. Then, as it's doing this warring, God's going to judge it. But this beast is going to try, he's going to think, intends to change times and law. It doesn't say he will. But then God's going to destroy this beast. And this times and a half time, the action of this beast is limited, has an expiration date, as we would say. Now let's look at the little horn of Daniel 8. What about this little horn? Daniel says, I raised my eyes and saw, and behold, a ram standing on the bank of the canal. It had 2 horns. Both the horns were high, but one was higher than the other. And the higher one came up last. And then no beast could stand before him. And there was no one who could rescue from his power. He did as he pleased. But as he was looking at this, as behold, a male goat came from the west across the face of the earth without touching the ground. Swiftness. And the goat had a conspicuous horn between his eyes. He came to the ram with the 2 horns, right, the single horn goat, which I had seen standing on the bank of the canal, and he ran towards him with this powerful wrath. Then he saw him come close to the ram. He was enraged against him and struck the ram and broke his horns, right, his kingdom. And the ram had no power to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and trampled him. This goat with the single horn trampled the ram with the two horns, and there was no one who could rescue the ram from the power. The goat was strong, became exceedingly great, but when he was strong, the great horn broken. That tells us something about the kingdom of this goat. And instead, out of that one horn came up 4 horns towards the 4 winds of heaven. And out of one of the 4 came a little horn. So out of the little horn comes out of the 4, which was out of the single one. And that little one grew exceedingly great towards the south, the east, and toward the glorious land. It grew great. Again, this is the little horn, even to the host of heaven, and some of the host and some of the stars it threw down to the ground and trampled them. It became great, even as the prince of the host. So this little horn is becoming boastful, thinks he's great. And the regular burnt offerings took him away. And the sanctuary of the people of the nation of Israel was overthrown. See, this is to the Jew again. It's not to you Gentiles, so don't see yourself in it because you're not here. And a host will be given over to it together with regular burnt offering because of transgression. See, the nation of Israel is being judged again for their sins. And it will throw to the ground, and whatever this little horn is going to do, it's going to prosper. And it says, well, the angels are going, how long is this going to happen? For how long is this vision and the burnt offerings and the temples and everything's going to cease? And then what's it say? This is going to cease for how long? 2,300 evenings and mornings. Then the sanctuary is going to be restored. So this has an expiration date also. Now, just like Daniel 7, we get the vision's interpreted. Same thing in Daniel 8, we get the vision and the vision's interpreted. Okay? And said, I heard a man's voice between the banks of the canal. Gabriel, make this man understand the vision. This is fantastic when I was reading about this. This is God talking to Gabriel, saying, tell him what it says. And Gabriel says, okay, understand, O Son of Man. Son of Man used in this context by Gabriel is a sign of weakness because you are a son of man. You are not powerful. This vision is for the time of the end. Now, it's not the time of the end of the age. It's the time of the end of this vision. As for the ram that you saw with the 2 horns, these are the kings of Media and Persia. See, there we go. I love biblical prophecy. It tells us what it is. And the goat, that's the king of Greece. Right, with Alexander the Great, we know that. And the great horn between his eyes is the first king. As for the horn that was broken, right, because we know the goat's horn was broken, in place of it rose 4 others, or 4 kings that shall arise from power, but not with his power. So they'll be powerful, but not like Alexander the Great was powerful, as we already know from history. And it says at the latter end of their kingdom, when the transgressors have reached their limit, in other words, when the nation of Israel has reached its limit of its transgressions, and it says, a king of bold face, one who understands riddles shall arise. So we're going to get this little horn who's going to rise from the 4 horn. Because once again, in the old covenant, when the nation of Israel transgressed God's law, there were curses promised. This is one of the curses. People are going to rule you, as happened with Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon. This is going to happen again. This is God's warning to the nation of Israel. Quit transgressing my law, because when you do, bad things are going to happen. More what God says about this little horn. His power shall be great, but not by his own power. He shall cause fearful destruction, and he does, and he shall succeed in what he does. He's going to destroy mighty men, and the people are the saints. People of the nation of Israel are going to get severely persecuted. And it says, by his cunning, he's going to make deceitful prosper under his hand. And so he's going to be a master on the world stage in politics. In his own mind, he thinks he's going to be great. Without warning, he's going to destroy many. He shall even rise up against the prince of princes, and he shall be broken. So now we're going to have the rise of this little horn and the fall. But you know what? Going to not be by human hand. So what do we know about the Daniel 7 and Daniel 8 little horn? Here's the Daniel 8. Let's do a comparison here. Daniel 7 little horn, it comes out of 3 horns, which is from Rome. The Daniel 8 little horn is, it's Greek, and it doesn't come up out of 10. It comes up out of the single horn, which came up out of the 4 horns. So it's a 2-step process. Already, just drop the mic and let's just walk away. These 2 are indeed called little horns in Daniel 7 and 8. 2 completely different origins. And you're going to see at the end two completely different endings. But let's continue. So the Daniel 7 little horn plucks 3 out of the 10, but the Daniel 8 little horn, there's no 10 horns. It comes from the single horn beast, which is then that's going to turn into 4 horns, and it comes out of that. So just doing the horn count alone is enough to prove that these two are completely separate. And by the way, the Daniel 7 little horn is going to devour the whole earth. The Daniel 8 little horn doesn't say he's going to devour the whole earth. He grew great towards the south and the east, not the whole earth. The Daniel 7 little horn is judged and destroyed by God. The Daniel 8 little horn is not judged and destroyed by, I'm just using air quotes, God per se, but you'll see here in a minute what that's going to mean. Let's look at the end. Speaking of the death, the Ancient of Days. Daniel 7, little horn. The beast was killed, its body destroyed, and given over and burnt with fire. I was not clear in the last video I did on this. I used the word annihilation, and there is my fault, and I'm slipping into Christianese. No, there is no annihilationism in the Bible. This is eternal conscience torment. We know more about the destruction of this beast because we got Revelation now. And what's Revelation 19:20 say? When it talks about the beast, and it does many places in the book of Revelation, these two, now this talking about the beast and the false prophet, and you can see here, were thrown alive, there it is, into the lake that burns with sulfur. They were destroyed by God, cast alive into the lake that burns with sulfur. That is the little horn from Daniel 7. What about the little horn from Daniel 8? And remember what it says? Look here at the bottom. He shall be broken, but not by human hands. How did Antiochus Epiphanes die? Because that's who the little horn is. He returned home and he died in 164 BC. He just died on his own. This Bible prophecy was true. There was no human hand that came and killed this little horn. He died on his own. So what do we have? We have 160 plus years of Adventist parrots stating their biblical inaccuracies, starting with the Review and Herald of 1860 down to, a fairly recent Advent. Please, Advent Defense League, tell your people how to read the Bible. Please do a video on that. I'd like to see that happen. And the brain trust that's called the Biblical Research Institute, well, I think that brain is completely defective. So let's end this here. Seventh-day Adventists, this is you. Your minds are hardened. For to this day, when they read the Old Covenant, that same veil remains unlifted. Because how is it lifted? Only through Christ it is taken away. You are not in Christ if you're a Seventh-day Adventist. You are under the law. Yes, to this very day, whenever Moses is read, a veil lies over their hearts. And you Seventh-day Adventists, you see the Sabbath and everything. That's your idol. But you can get this veil lifted. Turn away from the law and turn to the Lord when this veil is removed. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And where the law is, there is bondage and death. Adventists, you are under bondage and death. You ought to do what 2 Corinthians 3:14 through 17 says, and it says, come to the Lord.